What's up everyone, Darcblade here, returning with my Mass Effect 3 multiplayer class guide. Today we are going to be taking a look at another Retaliation DLC character, the Volus Engineer. Despite his small size, he can make big contributions to any team attempting harder difficulties through his debuffs, explosives, and the ability to restore his shields as well as his teammates' shields. Now, as always, I spec my characters for the harder difficulties, and with the Volus Engineer I put maximum points into its first ability, Recon Mine, putting points into Evasive Scan instead of armor damage. This is because Evasive Scan puts a nice damage debuff on opponents as well as slowing them down. I went for damage over recharge speed because I'm going to be using light weaponry. Also, that extra damage to Recon Mine really does help at dishing out damage to opponents. Lastly, I put points into radius because I want to affect as many people as I possibly can with the Recon Mine's damage debuff. With proximity mine, I put points into damage taken. This adds another debuff you can put on opponents. I also put points into damage, as proximity mine can be used as an outright damage dealing ability if needed. Now for shield boost, the Volus' unique ability, I put points into duration. Although thinking about it, both duration and protection are equally viable. It depends on what mentality you want and what role you want your shield boost to do. If you want it to restore yours and your teammates' shields for a longer time, then take duration. If you want it to reduce the amount of damage you and your teammates take, then take protection. In rank 5, I put points into recharge speed over regeneration. This is so I can use shield boost multiple times quite quickly. Lastly, I put points into shields over impact radius. This is because I wanted the amount of shields restored to be as much as possible. As for the Volus passive abilities, Volus training and fitness, these are down to personal preference. You can potentially take the points out of proximity mine to fill up both the passive abilities if you wanted to, but because I wanted the debuff from proximity mine, I went with proximity mine instead of filling up the passives. As for weaponry, like I said, I went with lightweight weapons. This is because I didn't want a huge recharge timer on my abilities whilst playing as the Volus Engineer. Anyway, let's get into the main part of the episode and talk about the Volus Engineer's moves and abilities. Its first move, its unique move, is a Recon Mine. This allows you to place a mine on any surface, which then goes into like a scanning mode, which reveals the position of any enemy near that mine. A few seconds after planting the mine, you have the option to remote detonate the mine. Pressing the ability again detonates the mine for huge damage. It's actually quite surprising how much damage this ability does, but I think it's because there is a few seconds in between planting the mine and being able to detonate it. Thus, you actually have to think ahead. You have to put the mine somewhere where enemies are actually going to run into it and enable you to detonate it. For example, if you fire a mine at a husk who's running at you, the husk is just going to pass the recon mine when fired. But if you fire the recon mine at the floor where you think the husk is going to be when you can detonate it, then you're going to be able to do a lot of damage. Recon Mine is a direct damage move, thus it can't actually set up any combos of any types, but it's able to activate tech combos. Now with the points for Recon Mine, what I did was to put points into Invasive Scan. This is one of the most vital talent points you can put in the Recon Mine tree, in my opinion. Evasive Scan makes all enemies who are affected by your Recon Mine take 25% more damage. It also has an added bonus of reducing the speed of any enemy affected by the Recon Mine by 30%, so it potentially has 2 debuffs against opponents. You just have to remember though that the actual damage debuff and slowdown debuff is for opponents who have been scanned with the Recon Mine, not just affected by the Recon Mine's explosion. Enemies who have been affected with the Recon Mine scan will appear with a red outline around them. They will also be able to be seen through walls. The biggest tactic and tip I can give for the Recon Mine is to place them and fire them into high traffic or bottleneck areas. This means that the Recon Mine will scan as many enemies as possible, and the Recon Mine's explosion will also damage as many enemies as possible. Timing is the key to success with the Recon Mine. Once you've got used to using it, know when to detonate it, then you're going to be doing a lot of damage to opponents. Now the second ability in the Volus Engineer's arsenal is Proximity Mine. I've covered this in other videos before, especially the Turian Soldier. Basically, this is a mine that is fired towards surfaces or directly at enemies. When an enemy is near or hit with the mine, it will explode. This does a moderate amount of damage, but the nice thing about Proximity Mine is that it can be used to put a debuff on enemies. This debuff makes enemies take 20% more damage for 8 seconds. Now when you think about that, combine that with the debuff you get from invasive scan on the recon mine, and you've got yourself a big damage debuff on opponents. Both these damage debuffs are for the whole team as well. It's damage from all sources, not just direct sources from you. So your entire team can take advantage of this, especially when it comes to a tough enemy like one of the boss type characters like Banshees or Praetorians. Proximity Mine can also be used to activate tech combos. It's a direct damaging move. So if you equip yourself with a tech type consumable ammo, you can activate them with Proximity Mine. Some people don't like to take Proximity Mine with their Volus Engineer, but I like to take it not only for the debuff you can put on enemies, but because it's a direct damaging move when the Proximity Mine is fired directly at an opponent. This is very good for emergency situations when you're in a quick fight, you don't have time to set up the recon mine properly, and you just want to deal out a little bit of extra damage against opponents. Now the third and final ability of the Volus Engineer is a unique ability to the Volus race, which is Shield Boost. This ability instantly restores your shields. It also restores the shields of any allies who are nearby you. After activating Shield Boost, it will continue to restore your shields for a brief time. All of this means is that Shield Boost gives the Volus the potential to be a genuine healer, able to run around the map healing his team's shields when needed. If you wanted to, you could put points into the protection talent in the Shield Boost tree, and thus play a tanking type Volus, able to take a lot of damage and heal himself up when his shields get a little bit too low. However, I put points into duration because I like my Shield Boost to heal me and my teammates' shields for as long as possible. The heal over time effect of Shield Boost is already quite substantial without the duration talent, but with the duration talent in the Shield Boost tree, it is made that much better. Remember though, at the end of the day, both these talents are viable, and it all comes down to your playstyle. A tip for Shield Boost would be to remember the heal over time effect, the hot effect of Shield Boost. Basically, after you use Shield Boost, you'll have a heal over time effect on you for a few seconds where your shields will continue to be restored. That being said, if you're under heavy fire, taking heavy damage, the heal over time effect will not be enough to keep you alive, in which case just use Shield Boost a second time to restore your shields again and keep yourself alive. As for the Volus passive abilities, Volus Training and Fitness, these, like I say, are always down to personal preference. For Volus Training, I put points into reducing the weight of my weapons and to increase my power damage. As for Fitness, I put points into health and shields mainly because the Volus, as a race, does not have a lot of health and shields. The other racial abilities of the Volus are quite different to other races. For example, the Volus's melee is really unique. Basically, the light melee allows the Volus to put on a tactical cloak of sorts. It doesn't give the damage bonus that a normal tactical cloak for infiltrators would give, but it allows the Volus to remain hidden and out of sight. Also, unlike the Infiltrator's tactical cloak, when you fire whilst cloaked as a Volus, you will remain cloaked. However, this light melee will only keep you cloaked for 4 seconds, and it does come with a 6-second cooldown. Now the heavy melee for the Volus is very defensive. Basically the Volus puts up this heavy tech shield bubble around himself. It staggers and lightly damages enemies upon casting. And when it is cast, it will reduce incoming damage and increase your shield regeneration rate by 10%. If you combine the heavy melee with Shield Boost, especially Shield Boost with points in the protection talent, then you'll be able to survive a lot of incoming damage. Lastly, the Volus has a straightforward combat role, able to get them out of harm's way quick enough. But a downside for the Volus is that they cannot take cover behind barriers and walls. This is a result of them being so short. As for weaponry, like I said at the start of the video, I like to go with light weapons. You can potentially use any weapon for this character, but because you want to use its mines and abilities as often as you can, you want to go with lightweight weapons, like submachine guns or pistols. So basically, the Volus Engineer is a very supportive character. It can take and draw damage by playing a tanking role, it can heal opponents' shields as well as his own, thus being a healer, and it can also lay out traps and debuff enemies thanks to the various mines it can use. Overall, the Volus Engineer is a very powerful and useful class, and probably one of the reasons why it is an ultra rare class. Anyway, I've been Darcblade bringing you my guide to the Volus Engineer in Mass Effect 3's multiplayer. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.